Every town has a fixture. In Fairhaven, it wasn't a statue or a flagpole. It was Eli Graves's booth at the Veterans Lane Cafe. The bell above the door chimed softly as Eli stepped in, back slightly bowed, steps measured but steady. The air was thick with maple syrup and fresh eggs sizzling on the griddle. He didn't glance around. 6:42 a.m. meant his booth, always the corner seat by the window, was free. "Morning, sugar," said Mara Whitman, already reaching for the coffee. Eli gave a small nod and eased into the seat, placing a leather notebook beside the salt shaker. His coat stayed mostly on, the corner folded just enough to reveal a worn triangle patch. The jacket looked older than the jukebox, faded, frayed, stitched with stories no one asked him to tell. He shook open the Fairhaven Weekly Ledger like he did every Monday. Same paper, same booth. Same quiet rhythm, like the jukebox cycling back to Sinatra. Breakfast never changed. Buttermilk pancakes, no butter, 2 strips of bacon. The folded $3 bill always appeared under the saucer before the plate did. At 6:47, the door slammed open. Kevin, Dorsey City Event Coordinator, burst in with a flurry of folders and a blast of cold air. "Big week ahead, folks," he called out, passing retirees deep in their eggs and politics. Mara didn't flinch as she refilled Mr. Finch's mug. Kevin reached the counter. "Triple shot, please. We're drowning in Veterans Day prep." "How behind are you on manners?" "Sweetheart?" Mara replied without looking up. Kevin scanned the room. His eyes landed on Eli. "Still got the throne, huh?" he muttered. "Must be nice." Mara said nothing. Instead, she walked Eli's breakfast to his table and set it down gently. "That man," she said, voice low, "once pulled my son out of traffic, broke his wrist catching him, paid his bill, said nothing." Kevin blinked. "Seriously? Didn't do that?" Mara gave a half smile. "Lot you don't know, baby." She turned away. Kevin drifted toward Eli's booth, arms crossed. Eli didn't look up from his paper. Kevin tilted his head, eyeing the coat. "That thing belongs in a donation." "Donnie," he said, tone too casual. The faded triangle patch peeked from the fold, more ghost than emblem. Eli turned a page. His silver watch ticked softly beneath the Sinatra tune. Kevin snorted. "Hope it doesn't fall apart before the parade." Across the room, Mara froze, her eyes locked not on Kevin but on Eli. The paper stilled. Eli said nothing. The silence was heavier than the joke. Kevin tapped the table, suddenly unsure. "Anyway, big week." He turned, folder swinging. The bell chimed again, softer this time. And as the door closed, sunlight broke through the fogged window, catching that old patch just long enough for it to shimmer. You're watching Stories Unseen, where the quietest men often carry the loudest truths. The morning sun caught the patch just right. Just enough to shimmer, but no one noticed. Not yet. Eli Graves never missed a Monday at Red Elm Memorial Grounds. By 6:03 a.m., the mist hung low across the gravel path, curling between bronze statues and bare trees like smoke from a long-forgotten fire. His gloved hands moved with the kind of patience that comes from war. Most benches had been replaced. Not this one. Next to him sat a canvas tote, cloths folded with care, a dented thermos, and a small American flag still stiff from its wrapper. He knelt in front of a weathered plaque. Lieutenant Thomas Callahan. F.O. A clean handkerchief, he wiped the dew, straightened the flower vase. A marigold had slumped sideways. He fixed it, adjusted the miniature flag so it stood upright, centered proud. Then came the crunch of gravel. "Sir, this area is closed until setup is finished," said Kevin Dorsey, clipboard tight in hand. Voice clipped like he'd practiced authority. In the mirror, Eli didn't rush, didn't explain. He simply turned his head, nodded once, and gestured to the grave. Kevin hesitated. "We're taping zones for chairs. Legal says no non-credentialed volunteers, liability, you understand." Still silent, Eli reached into his tote, pulled out a small wooden sign, blocky letters handwritten with faded ink. "Remember them. Key." Pressed it into the ground with quiet conviction. Kevin squinted. "Did you make that?" A voice came from behind the hedges. "He makes one every year." Colleen Park stepped out, Jacket 2 sizes too big, gloves tucked in her back pocket, and I leave it where he puts it. Kevin shifted. It's not city issued. He's been here longer than your permit, she said, head tilted. He fumbled for a response. But technically, so issue it, Colleen replied, grabbing a loose trash bag and walking past. By the time Kevin looked back, Eli had moved on, now kneeling before Sergeant Diane M. Luring, 1960-1989. The coat pulled at his shoulder, and for just a moment, that triangle patch showed again. Faded, frayed, almost gone. From a nearby bench, Walter Finch raised a trembling hand in salute, wrapped in scarves, coffee steaming in a paper cup. That man's been doing this since before my oldest was born, Colleen murmured. Kevin crossed his arms. Still wearing that jacket, huh? He said it like a joke, but no one laughed. It's just an old jacket, he added, scribbling nothing on his clipboard. Eli paused, glanced at the patch, pulled his collar up, then stood, nodded to Walter, and walked toward the edge of the park without a single word. Kevin bent to pick up the handmade sign. Uneven letters. Simple wood. Colleen stepped beside him. You really don't know, do you? Kevin blinked. Know what? The brass band struck a quiet note, and everyone stood except the man the general was walking toward. Kevin Dorsey stood at the podium, one hand white-knuckled on the mic stand, the other shuffling note cards like a man hoping the next one would rescue him. His tan sport coat was too thin for the cold, and too new to trust. He'd already fumbled, once mispronouncing Lieutenant Jabinski as Lieutenant Jazz Biscuit. It hadn't helped. And now, he said, trying to recover, please join me in welcoming our guest of honor, retired General Ruth Connors, decorated veteran of the United 1st Airborne, and recipient of the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and the Legion of Merit. Polite applause rippled across Red Elm Memorial Grounds. Veterans and spouses, teachers, city staff, teenagers with half-zipped hoodies, all watching. From a side path, General Connors emerged, flanked by two local ROC cadets. She didn't walk. She moved, with the calm assurance of someone who'd learned long ago how to read wind before a jump. Her coat was heavy with ribbons, her silver hair pulled into a single braid. Her eyes scanned the crowd, sharp and still. She climbed the platform steps, nodded once to Kevin, and then paused. Mid-step. Frozen. Her eyes had locked onto something, someone, far right, under the oak. Eli Graves sat with both hands resting on top of a cane he hadn't needed yesterday, his coat zipped halfway, the faded triangle patch just barely visible beneath his folded arms, his head bowed, not in disrespect, but in something deeper, something older. The general didn't speak. She stepped down from the riser. The crowd hesitated. The band fell silent. The wind held its breath. She crossed the grass slowly, boots silent on damp earth. The only sound, the flag above them flapping. Once, then stilling, she stopped in front of Eli, straightened, and raised her hand in a crisp, precise salute, clean, sharp, and heavy with meaning. A salute that needed no stage to give it weight. Gasps fluttered across the crowd like a bird startled from stillness. A woman clutched her husband's arm. A teacher dropped her program. A boy whispered, "That's Mr. Eli." Kevin froze. His mouth opened, then closed. A note card slipped from his hand like a leaf. The general held the salute longer than protocol required, then lowered it. "That patch," she said, voice low, steady, meant only for truth, "was issued to 5 men. He's the last one standing." Silence fell like snow. A child in the front row leaned over. "That's the guy from the cafe." Eli didn't move, didn't flinch. He looked carved, like he'd always been there, stone and spirit. Then finally he nodded, stood, slowly, and returned the salute, right as a lone trumpet began to play taps. Kevin Dorsey approached the booth slowly, like he was stepping into a place he hadn't earned yet. Eli's jacket lay across the table, creased at the elbows, threadbare at the cuffs. Beside it sat a blank diner receipt. Scrawled across the bottom in looping cursive, Eli Graves. Tucked under the hem was a napkin, folded twice. Kevin lifted it. 5 words stared back. Some honors don't come with ceremony. He let out a long breath and leaned back, eyes still fixed on the table. Mara Whitman appeared with 2 mugs, one already half full. She placed one in front of him. Didn't think I'd see you here before 9. Kevin didn't look up. Did he say anything? Just asked for your usual table, she said. Didn't say much, but then again, he never did. He nodded faintly. How long have you known? She pulled over a chair, sat down gently. I don't know what I knew, she said, just enough to trust the quiet. Kevin looked over. You once said he helped your son. Mara's eyes softened. Norman was 6, ran into street. Car came out of nowhere. Eli caught him mid-step, broke his wrist doing it, wouldn't let me call an ambulance, just smiled and said, It's just a sprain. Kevin touched the edge of the napkin. And you never told anyone? Mara shrugged. Wasn't mine to tell. The bell above the door chimed again. Colleen Park stepped in, shaking off drizzle, jacket zipped to her chin. She glanced at the booth, then made her way over. Knew. I'd find you 2 here, she said, sliding in beside Mara. Kevin gestured to the jacket. Be my guest. Colleen folded her hands. A couple years ago, week before Christmas, a storm knocked out power at Red Elm. Couldn't get the maintenance crew out till Monday. But Saturday morning, every headstone was clean. Every path, shoveled, lanterns lit. Found a receipt signed, E. Graves, night crew. Kevin stared at the patch. He was there the whole time. He never left, Colleen said. He just didn't need a spotlight. Behind them, the cafe radio shifted. Slow tune from the 1940s started playing. Something swingy, gentle. A few older customers tapped their feet without even thinking. Kevin looked back at the jacket. Didn't touch it. Didn't need to. Across the room, a boy no older than 7 raised a hand and waved. Norman Jr., shy smile, denim jacket, 2 tiny flag pins on the collar. Kevin blinked, then nodded. He stood. Picked up the jacket. Held it, not like something heavy, but something earned. I need to find him, he said, and he meant it. The mailbox rattled empty. Kevin Dorsey knocked anyway. No answer. The curtains were drawn. The porch was still. Stepped back, unsure what he expected. Maybe a man in uniform, maybe a glow from the window, maybe closure. Looking for Eli? The voice came from next door. An older man leaned on a cane, rimless glasses perched low. Thomas, he said. Known him since '64. He won't be back today. Kevin stepped closer. Do you know where he is? Thomas tapped the porch with his cane. Sunday, 3 p.m. sharp, Veterans Section, Summit View Cemetery, rain or shine. Kevin paused. Every week? Thomas nodded. Everyone he remembers. Kevin turned to go. He's not hiding, son. Thomas added. He just doesn't need to be found. That Sunday, exactly 3 p.m., Eli Graves stood in front of Lieutenant Callahan's grave, jacketless, hands behind his back, a single white flower resting at his side. The wind tugged at his shirt cuffs. Gold leaves drifted like slow-motion applause. Kevin approached without a word. No fanfare, just footsteps and breath. He stopped beside Eli. Didn't speak. Held his own white flower. After a long silence, Eli leaned forward. Placed his flower. Kevin followed. The blooms leaned into each other like old comrades. Eli finally spoke. He was 23. Had a laugh that cracked through static. Called me Cap, though I was younger. Carried her photo in his helmet. I never asked who she was. Always. Meant to. Kevin stayed quiet. I come every year, Eli said, because I can. He turned just enough to look Kevin in the eye. Why are you here? Kevin didn't flinch. Because I should have listened sooner. Eli didn't nod. Didn't leave either. That night, the high school auditorium buzzed with teenage energy. A banner stretched across the stage. Career Day. Voices who serve. Eli stood off stage. Plain sweater. No name tag. Arms folded like always. Kevin handed a folded letter. You sure? One condition, Eli replied. Kevin smiled. No applause. Eli stepped up. The room stilled. I was asked to speak about service, he said. So here it is. Not all service wears a uniform. Sometimes it's cleaning something no one sees, carrying weight no one knows. Sometimes it's just staying. He paused, letting silence fill the gaps. When I was 19, I carried a man 3 miles through jungle. He was bleeding, couldn't walk. He kept whispering, "Don't stop, keep walking." So I did. He looked out over the crowd. You'll be told to speak, but sometimes the greatest strength is silence that walks. Kevin stepped forward, opened the letter. This is from General Connors, he read. The best heroes don't speak loudly. They notice, they act, they change the world, quietly. A girl wiped her eyes. A cadet sat straighter. A boy raised his hand. What did the patch mean? Eli paused. It meant, I went where others wouldn't. He never spoke of duty. He never asked for thanks, but when no one else stepped forward, he stepped in and somehow, without asking for anything, he left behind everything that matters, a life that made others stand taller. And long after his footsteps faded, his example didn't. If you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, subscribe to Stories Unseen, because some legacies don't echo through applause. Silent honor is still the highest kind.